So I'll begin by demonstrating all the different aspects of this assignment that we had to do. So the first part was to randomize the gap between pipes and their spacing, and then also randomize the interval at which the pipes spawn. So I'll demonstrate that here. I disabled colliding just so we can have a smoother time demonstrating all the different parts without relying on my ability to play the game. So here you can see both the intervals and the spacing between the pairs of pipes is changing every time they spawn. It has been completely randomized while maintaining a hopefully playable experience. Maybe sometimes the gaps are too narrow, but I decided just to roll with that for the sake of successfully demonstrating their randomization. So that is the pipes. Here we have an example of the next part of the update, which was to add a trophy based on your score. And I added also a high score that will keep track of that high score separate of your current score. So here we got a gold trophy for maintaining, for getting to 13 points. And as we can see that if we just immediately flop, then that'll change to a bronze trophy. And then there will also be a silver trophy for some value in between. I believe I have it as 2 currently. So let's get a score of 2, and as you can see, the high score of 13 is still showing up there. So 3 is still a gold trophy. I believe 2 is the silver trophy value that I have. Alright, and there's the silver trophy, and obviously all those values can be changed. I made simply 0, 2, and 3 just to quickly show the trophies. And so the last part was a pause feature for the game that would play a sound as well as pause the music and demonstrate that it is being paused. So press P, the game will be paused, the music stops, and we see a clear pause triangle to show the game is paused. And we press P again, the music resumes, and all the gameplay resumes normally without any problems. And we will die and show that we have a gold trophy. So let's take a look in the code as to how all of that was done. The first part was the gaps between the pipes and their intervals. So we can look at the spawning interval here. It was before the code was changed to, and I added a variable to 2, self.pipe spawn gap, which is going to be a random value between 0 and 20, and that changes every time that the game is updating. So the timer will be slightly different every time. I didn't want to make it too different because then pipes will just either not be spawning for long periods of time or continuously spawning too close to each other. And then looking at the pipe gap, we have here our local pipe gap is still 90, but every time we are instantiating the pipes, I basically added a random value for the top pipe between 0 and 20, and for the bottom pipe between -20 and 20, which I found works well enough for their heights without disappearing or completely negating their gap. So it still always maintains a gap, and it'll just change in height randomly every time they spawn. So for the score state and medal awards, you can take a look at that here. We have 3 new variables: gold trophy, bronze trophy, and silver trophy, that all point to some images that I made of the respective trophies and their colors. And all of that then is given here in the logic. So obviously the logic can change here to make it more competitive, but I just gave a bronze trophy if you are below or equal to 1. If your score was just straight up equal to 2, then you would get the silver trophy and display it. And then if the score was greater than or equal to 3, you would get a gold. So I believe that is all for the score state. If we look now at the pause feature, this one was a little more tricky to implement. There is technically 2 pauses happening every time I press P. So similar to what was shown in the lecture, we have a scrolling variable, And basically all of our update code is a condition of that scrolling. If scrolling equals true, then the game will continue to update as normal. However, because of the separate play states, I basically had to also add the same scrolling feature to the play state separate from the main.lua, because if I only pause the play state, then main.lua would keep running and the background scrolling would still happen, and I didn't want that to happen. So I had two scrolling variables for the different update functions, and we have our key pressed event. So if key is equal to p, then scrolling will be turned to false. This also happens. This is in main.lua, and in play state.lua, the same thing happens. We go to right here. So yeah, if left.keyboard was pressed, then scrolling turns into false. If it was already true, and then if it wasn't, then turn it back into true. This allows us to pause and unpause successfully. And then back in main.lua, I added the sounds that will play, as well as pausing the current music that was playing until it has to resume. So I think that concludes all the different things that I added. Oh, and there was also the triangle, which we basically just in the love.draw. When scrolling turns to false, then we will display a polygon in the middle of the screen, and it'll just go away when we unpause. So those are all the things for this assignment.